Hey, Bill, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
I am very excited to hear all about your background story, see what comes up in our discussion. You've got a really interesting history and combination of things happening, like author, RN, past history in the military, super long-term vegan. Very interesting. So, why don't we start with the vegan piece?
Sure.
And then we're going to tie that into everything else eventually. So, how did you come to veganism? This is like almost 3 decades ago, way before it was cool. What the hell
Yeah.
happened?
Someone actually within the last 2 years ago said, well, you were a vegan before it was cool. And
Yeah.
I kind of said yes, but then I stopped and I was like, are you inferring that being vegan now is cool? Because if so, I mean, that fucking rules. Like,
Dude,
because,
I haven't gotten the memo yet because there's still a lot of BS out there around veganism and it's not cool in every sense, but I see what you're
oh,
saying.
I mean, I've just, I went vegan back in 1992. So, and vegan in the military, vegan, I lived abroad for 8 years and vegan there. And I'm just not used to, I'm still not used to, I'm not used to being vegan being cool. B, I'm still not used to being able to go to one of our many burger joints and get a vegan burger. Like
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
there was decades where if I went to say like Carl's Jr., I don't know why I would, but if I did, and I asked for the vegan option besides giggles and laughs, they would just give me an empty bun and that would be the vegan option. And I mean, people used to
uh,
go and do that because they would be like, look at me, yum, 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 I'm eating a vegan bun. But so how did I go vegan? I'll try not to sidetrack myself too much. So I went vegan. I actually went vegetarian first as a joke in 1991. I say as a
as a
joke,
joke.
as a
Okay, I
joke.
need to know more about this.
So I was a snarky punk rock kid. You probably wouldn't get that from the Sergeant Vegan background, but I was originally a punk rocker. And my mom asked me, my mom and my dad and my family raised us all Catholic, very religious household. They said, "Hey, it's Lent is coming up, and for those who don't know, Lent is 40 days before Easter. That uh, Jesus of Nazareth was in a desert or some shit like that." And
That's the best description I've ever heard.
and
Brilliant.
I know that doesn't have anything to do with Easter bunnies or eggs, but that's what Lent is, and leading into Easter. Easter is the time Jesus died and rose from the grave, allegedly. So, ask me what I was going to give up for Lent. Catholics traditionally give up something like we'll say they'll eat less candy or they will
Mm.
stop smoking. Something positive, supposed to be good, or just something kind of be Jesus-y. Uh, as a
Jesus-y.
as a joke, I said, uh, Catholics don't eat meat once a week during Lent. I won't eat meat the entire Lent. So nowadays, if you said, "Hey, I'm not eating meat for a month and some change," people would just say, "Oh, like that sounds like a nice healthy cleanse or something like that." Even in
Hmm.
the Midwest, if you said that, no one would lose their minds. But in 1991, since I could curse, I'm going to use it. Motherfuckers lost their minds.
Motherfuckers lost their minds. Yeah, I can
Uh,
only imagine. I can only
Family
imagine.
doctor said I was going to get sick. Uh, Friends told me nice knowing you kind of stuff. Like my mom
Wow.
was very worried. So was friends, family members, and everybody. And why? Because we're heavily brainwashed into thinking that meat is like oxygen that we need us to survive. So at the end of 40 days, spoiler alert, I did not die. Spoiler alert, I did not get sick. At the time, I was a college wrestler, and I felt pretty good. It being just vegetarian, it it felt like if anything, I felt better. But I mean, I was a in shape 18-year-old at the time, so people are gonna often ask me, "How was it before you were a vegetarian?" Man, I was 18. Like what? I was an in shape 18-year-old at that. So it's not like I had any like I went vegan and one day later I cleared up my diabetes or something like that. I
Right.
felt
Yeah,
great
totally.
before. I felt great after. I thought, you know what? I'll just stick with this. And as the semester progressed, and as I kind of like thought more about it, it started being vegetarian started to align with my punk rock philosophy, with sociology, because I was a sociology major at the time.
Hmm.
And then I got a hold of some literature at PETA show at punk rock shows that people were giving out PETA pamphlets because back in the day with no internet, because this was pre-internet, if you wanted to learn about something, you had to like actually read it and have it in your hands.
Imagine
It's,
that, eh?
yeah, that's some crazy shit.
Yeah.
So I read about what factory farming was doing to our planet, how awful factory farming was, and then I started to think, you know what? Had this vegetarian thing that I've locked into, that everyone's telling me I'm an idiot or I'm going to die or something like that. It's actually something that more people should be doing, and in fact, we knew even then how bad factory farming was for the planet and slaughterhouses and stuff. And I was just like, this completely aligns with what I want to do, which is make the world a better place. And then one fateful day, sometime in August of 1992, I got a hold at another punk rock show of
I'm
something.
seeing a theme here.
Yeah, something. I mean, because back in the day, if you've ever heard of the band Rage Against the Machine, they had actually said that at their shows, and this was actually around the same time. There you could learn more about society at a Rage Against the Machine show than you could the regular news. But anyway, I got a hold of a PETA pamphlet about the dairy industry, and I started to realize, like, wow, like dairy, is rape. It's not just some wonderful cow like prancing all around and giving more than enough milk, and the whole, like, if a cow didn't get milked, it would explode. It was, we're weirdly and creepily raping these cows, forcing them to give birth. Their babies are becoming veal. Then they kill
Hmm.
the cow too. And then I just realized, if I'm gonna have a cheese sandwich, I might as well make it a cheeseburger, because they're killing the cow either way. And then I thought, okay, I have to pump the brakes and think about this. How much animal exploitation, how much animal cruelty am I okay with? The answer really was zero, and it was a binary choice. It was either take part in this thing that I find to be fucking awful, or say no. And to say no to animal cruelty meant to be vegan, and I've been vegan ever since. And people have given me a lot of guff about it, as you would guess, or since this is a rated E show, a lot of shit for it. And I've had to put up with a lot of stuff, but no one has ever really given me a good reason why. I mean, not definitely not medically, not philosophically or physiologically, why you need meat to live. It's just hey, be more normal like us kind of crap. And if to be normal is destroy planet and kill animals for no reason, then fuck that shit. I want nothing to do with it.
Oh my goodness. Well said. Well said. I love that. So this you're pretty young at this point. Like I also went vegetarian first and then went vegan, but it took me 5 years to have that holy shit moment of, "Oh, I'm actually supporting the veal industry by drinking milk." And, "Oh, I'm supporting the chicken meat industry by eating eggs." Like that whole thing took me 5 years because, again, this is the '90s. This is, not a ton of
Mm.
information out there. It takes a while to figure it all out. Also, I was young. I was 11 when I went vegetarian.
Oh wow. Well,
But li
then you
it
were way ahead of everybody else then.
well, yeah, but this is late. This is after you. So in
I
the
mean,
whole
not
time
me,
frame,
but you were ahead of almost everybody else. I mean, I'm
at the
just getting
time,
to the world.
yes.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. But it also wasn't like a holy shit moment. One of my business coaches used to use that term a lot. The holy
Mm.
shit moment, like some catalyst. It was a slow getting more information, thinking about it, figuring shit out. Um, but it didn't take you very long. This seems like it was from one
No.
year to the next kind of thing.
Well, I went vegetarian in, I guess I was officially calling myself vegetarian by April, because my birthday is on tax day here, April 15th, just in case anyone wants to send me shit. Just kidding.
We'll keep that in mind.
So I had gone vegetarian the beginning of like started to transition for that Lent thing in March.
Hmm.
And then I specifically remember my mom saying, like, what did I want for my birthday dinner? Uh, and saying it had to be something vegetarian, and her saying, oh, I thought it was just going to be a 30 or 40-day thing. I'm like, nah. And then by that August, so 8 months later, I was calling officially saying the word vegan, and then following it up with what a vegan was, since no one knew what that word meant.
Wow. That really is a pretty fast transition. That's impressive. How
But
did your
I think because I didn't know that, I mean, nowadays there's a million like vegan or vegetarian or whatever books or influencers or whatever. And there's a bazillion Google searches you could do. So you could find the best or whatever. And I use it in quotes because the best is whatever works for you. I
Mhm.
didn't have it, the advantage of any of that. I just did what I thought I was going to do at the time. So it worked for me, and then I'm not dead. Would it have been better to transition any other way? I don't know. I mean, we're gonna have to, rewind the tape in like 70 years when I'm dead.
in 70 years or in 7 years?
70.
Okay, good. Just checking. I heard 7 and I'm like, "No, that can't be right. That can't
Well,
be
you
right."
wouldn't think since I'm 47 now that I'm gonna make it to 117, but
Hey, you never know.
I'm gonna challenge everyone that's hearing this. Why the fuck not?
Why the fuck not? Yep, why
Exactly.
not, man?
Yeah.
So, how did your family respond to the vegan piece? I mean, you already mentioned the birthday dinner where your mom was like,
Yeah.
I thought this was short term."
Yeah.
Did you get a lot of shit for it from your family? What's the deal? You're still
So
pretty young at this point.
yes, I was 19. Yes, I got a lot of shit for it. But to be fair, they were just responding with whatever society had told them.
Right.
They were responding to whatever a family doctor had said. They were
True.
responding to like common sense stuff in their minds. It wasn't that they were being jerks about it. That's what made sense to them.
Mhm.
And also, to be fair, so maybe not in the beginning, but as someone that was a punk rock transitioning into being what we call in underground music a hardcore kid, I got into later. I got into Earth Crisis and a lot of those bands that are advocating a vegan revolution. I was probably not the easiest person to be around. I mean, my mom brought up a couple of years ago that I had wrote "Meat is Death" on one of her cookbooks and
Nice
showed it
one.
to me, and I thought, man, I was fucking awesome. But I also had to
Yeah, you
think,
could put it that way.
yeesh, could you imagine having to put up with this motherfucker? Listen to the probable crazy shit that came out of my mouth. And I would probably start off a conversation with humans' lives are the same as cows' lives, and some of that stuff, vegans might be able to say, like, well, like, yeah, all of our lives matter. So I must be like, no, your life and an ant's life is exactly the same. Fuck you if you don't agree with me. Like, it'd be like, like probably, you
Little
know,
cringy to some
yeah, a
folks,
little
I'm sure,
cringy, and I've since scaled it back immensely. But I mean, that's the advantage of 28 years in the game versus
Totally.
like one. Uh, I'm able to say like, okay, like we have to live with one another. We have to tolerate one another. I can give you a million, not you, but a million reasons why they shouldn't put a dead animal in their mouth. But at the end of the day, that's what they decide. It's not going to help veganism or the animals if I like knock that hamburger out of their mouth or whatever. It hasn't done anything. It's just made me look like a jerk. And if I've occasionally see on the interwebs where someone will say like you should be a jerk to everyone that's not vegan, like that. They'll say like I'm not eating with. They'll take a liberation pledge. I'm not eating with
Mm,
other people who eat. Man, none of that shit works. None of that
it
shit
really
works.
doesn't. It doesn't. No.
None of that will actually work to change people's minds. What does work is back off, give people information, let them do it themselves, and then cook them food that just blows their mind. That will work. But being a jerk off to somebody only means that they think you're a jerk off. And then next time they meet a vegan, they'll be like, ugh.
Yes, exactly. I got to tell you, this whole like, don't be a dick face, don't be a shithead is basically how I try to operate as a vegan. I mean, as a human too, I try my best. But I do have to tell you that one of the gyms I used to train clients at, so I did the whole in person training thing for 7 years before I went online. And the second gym I worked at, it's kind of the same idea as a hairdresser salon. Like you rent a chair and then you have your
Hmm.
own clients. It's a gym space that's not a commercial gym. It's just trainers training their own clients. Anyway, the second gym I worked at was particularly bro-esque in the atmosphere. Lots of like, you know, things like, oh, that's pretty good for a vegan, lots of poking fun at veganism because they thought it was hilarious, right? And I'm just doing my thing, whatever. We had a pull up contest that I happened to win. And so there was a lot of things about, oh, yeah, well, pretty good for a vegan. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, you know. Anyways, I tried not to be a shithead about it. Tried to bring in delicious food to share. The whole thing about how that's actually more useful than just, fighting back essentially. Fast forward 3 years, and one of the dudes who was most in that whole space of pretty good for a vegan contacts me out of the blue and says, "Hey, I need help going vegan." And I thought you'd be the person to contact. So you're absolutely right. You never know. You never know. And the being cut off, like, I'm not going to eat with people who aren't vegan, being so called militant, it doesn't work. It really doesn't. So I'm
No.
100% with you.
I mean, it's a shame because I would love that all the angry words and
Yeah.
slogans that I've hurled at people for like literal decades. I would love to think that it helped. It hasn't. What has
No,
helped,
sadly not.
with my parents, my mom went more or less vegetarian. My dad eats Beyond Meat and Impossible now more than he eats like regular meat.
That's
And
awesome.
they'll do it when I'm not around. They'll do it. My brother's also vegan through my influence, I'd like to say, but
Oh, I'm sure.
um, they'll do it even if they're not around. They'll just do it. And my sister, neither of my sisters is vegetarian, but they're now slowly moving toward it. Why? Why slowly, and why didn't they embrace it quicker? Maybe because most of their brothers were jerks about it. I mean, let's let's be fair.
It's possible.
Probably less my brother than me. My brother has been always the more live and let live, and I took the whole activist thing more to heart,
Mm.
thinking that I was helping, and now it turns out I was probably hurting. But you live and learn, and now we can actually hopefully get shit done.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were obviously vegan during a time where it wasn't so-called cool. I'm using air
Oh, it
quotes
was
around that.
fucking not cool at all. Not cool at all. Maybe with our group. So I went in and out of being like having friends that were very similar to me, being vegan straight edge, and
Mm,
that's
mhm.
that was a whole movement, but it was so underground that I don't think your average Joe or Joette would ever come in contact with us. Maybe at a protest. I mean, maybe if you went to a punk rock show, you would see us there, but otherwise, you
Mhm.
might not even know it. So when I was around those people, then it was like, echo chamber. We all had very similar views. Yeah, but then I moved to Japan, and then I was active in that music scene, but pretty much I was basically on a desert island as far as being vegan or whatever.
Yep. I think that's a pretty common experience for folks who went vegan around that time,
Mm,
regardless of what niche subculture they were in. But let's talk about your
sure.
experience in the military, especially as a vegan, because that just blows my brain how
Yeah.
that was possible slash how you survived. Seriously.
Somebody,
I'm
somebody,
I'm sure that a lot of this is my own stereotypes
no, no,
and
no,
and
you're not
stuff,
wrong.
but
Someone actually just DM'd me about this like today, like 2 hours
uh-huh.
ago. And I was like, watch my videos because I think I talk about vegan veterans in the videos. And I have it in Vegan Strong. I have a whole chapter about it. So I went vegan. Sorry, I decided to go into the military a little bit after 9/11. I watched 9/11 pretty much in real time, like a lot of people, but I
Mhm.
was living in Japan at the time. So
Hmm.
watching it a world away, it just made it feel very somehow more powerful, probably because it was so far away. Like it was my home, my kind of somewhat idealized idea of home because I only went there once a year,
Mhm.
is under attack. It's literally on fire. And the whole coming from that punk rock background, the immediacy of, DIY, do it yourself, make shit happen. Don't wait for someone else to do it. You do it. Made me think, okay, I could do what my other liberal friends were doing, which is sitting at home and like angrily judging the world, telling their TV screen what they think, but and not actually doing anything. Or I could do what made sense to me at the time, which was leave my cushy job and existence in Japan and join the military. And then as far as having to like sort out the, vegans are supposed to be about nonviolence. Well, you'd be actively killing people. I thought, you know what? I go in as a medic. That way I'm helping the locals. I'm helping my own soldiers or whoever I was with. And I'd be able to like make a change, make the world a better place. And it definitely fit with my PMA, positive mental attitude, like punk rock philosophy. Even though being in the military is the least fucking punk thing you could do, it somehow made sense. And that's what I did. I left Japan. I sold all my stuff, moved back to the States. I looked at the different branches. I decided I wanted to become a paratrooper, and I wanted to be a combat medic. And that's pretty much what happened. And the main thing I think back in the day, back before I got so into punk rock that uh, kept me from joining the service was kind of actually weirdly, I didn't want to wear leather combat boots.
Mm.
And now
Oh,
that the
that's an
world,
interesting aspect.
yeah,
I hadn't
that
thought
was
of that.
actually something that I thought about joining the service kind of early in college. And after I became vegan, I was like, can't, won't. Like, so I had to reconcile like that. And basically, I thought, well, I think the good I can possibly do is going to outweigh the possible whatever pitfalls of doing something that's kind of like in a gray area. And I
Mhm.
think it's very similar to, in a lot of ways, when people talk about like, I'm too vegan to eat the Impossible Burger, or I'm too vegan to do this, or like to drive. And I'm gonna say like, if you tell people that you can't drive because driving, using fossil fuels or whatever is not a vegan thing, you're basically telling people that they shouldn't be vegan because there's no way that you can live in society, and therefore you're eliminating the being able to actually do the whole thing of being vegan,
Mhm.
make it practical. So anyway, I joined the military, and yeah, like you at your original question, it was it was a culture shock. It was culture shock being back in America because I was mostly used to even just speaking Japanese and not English. So now I'm back to speaking English, but there's now I'm with people from Texas to Hawaii, and it's just that culture clash. And like you would guess, and like I told the guy who asked me today, yeah, having to live off of the in the, get my food from the dining facility meant pretty much starving to some extent. And I made it the 8 weeks, but I lost like 15 pounds, and I
Oh,
was
wow.
not fat. So it was a 15 pounds I did not want to lose.
Right.
But I made it through, just like any vegan who's had to, eat something undesirable at one time or another. I went through that. So I guess my basic training experience I would sum up through food. Uh, Practically speaking, breakfast. What do you eat for breakfast? You could think of all the just egg and vegan blueberry pancakes or chocolate chip pancakes you want, but practically, what did I eat? Dry cornflakes most of
Oh
the
my
time.
goodness.
So
That's going to
when
fuel you for what, 2 minutes?
when I got tired of the dry cornflakes, I was just like, I can't eat another bite. Then I started putting fruit cocktail, like that really shitty from an industrial can with those cherries in it. And
Horrid.
yeah,
Horrid.
then when I couldn't eat that anymore, then I just started putting it in my coffee and waiting until it kind of mushed up.
Oh
None of that is
man.
good, and I don't suggest it. At the same point, what do you fucking like? I could have just said to myself, "What the fuck do you expect? You are not joining the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts. You're joining the fucking military. You know, if this is where you can't take it anymore, just like in the breakfast is not to your liking, the fuck is it going to be like? And I did Afghanistan for a year. What's it going to be like when
Right.
shit gets real? You know, the people who are weak don't last through tough times, and in a way that just served as another toughener. But since I had made it through the kind of rougher 90s being vegan, I just went back into suck it up mode, and that helped. Being able to say like, there's always been a worse time, and I will make it through this too, and I made it through.
Amazing.
Lastly, when it comes to food and in the military, it wasn't all like that. There were some training scenarios that were equally limited, like sometimes during like a field training exercise or FTX, it could be a little rough when you're relying on MREs, those pouched meals.
Hmm.
And there are some vegetarian MREs. There's no vegan MREs, so you're trading stuff to get enough calories, mostly peanut butter and that lousy fruit cocktail shit.
Oh man.
But airborne school was a breeze, other than the jumping out of planes thing, and I got more than enough food. When I was in medics training, that was easy too. Why? Because I was with, instead of being at Fort Benning, Georgia, home of the infantry, I was with other medics,
Mm,
and they're going to always feed those people better and coddle them more. Why? Because not all of them were going to be going out in the field with infantry. They were going to be in a cushy hospital. So
right.
you couldn't be expecting people that are never going to have to suck it up or sleep on the ground to be doing that. So it was easier. And then my normal unit, when I went to Italy to be in the 173rd Airborne, that wasn't that bad either. I was living in Italy. Have you been to Italy yet?
Not yet. Been to other
Uh,
places in Europe, but not Italy.
Vegan food is amazing. I actually went the other direction with weight. I put on weight. I was like the chubbiest vegan who worked out every day and ran 5 miles plus, because I was eating like a pizza a day,
Oh
not
yeah, I
not a
believe it.
pizza, not a piece of pizza, but the whole
The
pizza.
whole pizza, yep.
And there was a gelato place that had soy gelato, so I was getting a kilo,
Oh
2.2
my
pounds
goodness.
of
Holy
ice
shit.
cream a week. So I was eating like there was no tomorrow. And I'm glad later in my military career that I did, because when I went to Afghanistan, it was back to suck it up mode for a bit.
That
So
makes sense.
uh, basically, what happened was, before I went to Afghanistan, I knew that it was going to be sparse. I knew what it was like in basic training, and I was like, I can't let myself go calorie deficient and start getting that brain fog when you haven't eaten and you're starving, when I'm in real shit situations. So I got clever. I found out where we were going in Afghanistan. They gave us an APO address, an armed forces like uh, post office box that you could send stuff to if you wanted. They had mostly thought of it. People wanted to send their whatever, like I can't think of anything that they would have thought that was for, but they just had the address. So I sent myself. I got two industrial sized boxes, like you could fit a large midget to maybe a small like gigantic.
Mhm.
And I put every manner, if it was a non-perishable vegan item from the early 2000s, it was in there. From
Brilliant.
soy milk to ramen to Cliff Bars to whatever, anything you can think of, it was in that box. And I sent two of them. And we got to Afghanistan. They were doing the first briefing, and they were like, "Okay, first off, Doc," and they called me Doc because I was a medic. Got some bad news. One of your boxes exploded, and
What?
there was shock and amazement and utter terror on my face for my food.
Yeah,
And
I would have the
I
exact same reaction.
and I go, exploded, with the hand gesture in that same voice. And yeah, as you could guess, I got shit for that for at least 6 months, because every time we were attacked, someone would go explosions or exploded.
Explosions.
I just said it like that, like exploded with the hand.
Oh
So
man.
shock, terror. I ran through that box in about a month, and I started to think, like, what am I going to do? Like, yeah, we had somewhere where it doesn't need to go for meals. It was basically two Marines who were opening these industrial tins. Cooking was like basically, I mean, not a campfire, but maybe two steps up from that.
Okay.
Uh, no vegan options other than bread and like some like vegetables washed in dirty water. Like, what am I going to do? Through luck and what have you, I found out about a website called anysoldier.com,
Huh.
which people can send, civilians can send, people are in the services, food, whatever. I put on there that there was like a vegan that I knew, like namely me, that needed stuff. And it it blew people's minds that somebody in the midst of all the chaos after 9/11 would join, not only join the military, but would do it as a vegan and then decide to serve in Afghanistan as a vegan. People, vegan or not, were sending me stuff. I got a ridiculous, like, I could only put it as a ridiculous amount of stuff. And it definitely saved my ass. And the,
That's
the,
amazing.
the company Tofurky found out about it, and Tofurky sent me a
No
whole bunch of
way.
stuff too. Yeah. So you remember that thing on Tofurky boxes that said like, send us your picture with Tofurky in the most rando spot.
Yes. Did you do that?
They had sent me shelf stable stuff, and I got a picture of with it's me and a 105 millimeter howitzer and the mountains of Afghanistan. You could tell we're in the middle of fucking nowhere. You
Wow.
know, uh, probably probably the only picture of that type that existed at that time. And I think people were just like, these are two worlds that never intersect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you know now if it's any, I mean, it must be better, but do you know what the situation is, for example, in basic training? Like, do current vegans in 2021 have more options now, or is it still a pretty dire situation?
So I can tell you as far recent as 2013, because
Okay.
I guess the footnote to this story is that I got out of the military when my time was up, specifically to open a vegan restaurant. I went to vegan culinary school. I had like pretty big ideas. And then in 2008, obviously the economy took a big fucking nosedive.
Yeah.
And I was like, by 2010, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to open something. What should my plan B be? And as unluck would have it, the Haiti earthquake thing happened, and I went to Haiti to help out. And
Mm.
while I was there, I started, as I was back to my old medic ways, started to think, I kind of miss being able to help people like this, and not just in a like, oh, you should eat better, but in a, I am helping you, I am bandaging you up and sewing you up or whatever. And I missed helping like that. So I decided to go back in the reserves and get paid to work out and shoot guns again.
That's one way to put it.
And it was very, very different. The reserves is a very different mindset. It's, like people joke, the weekend warrior, whatever, completely true. Most of those people hadn't never been deployed.
Mm.
It was very weird, especially, the hippie sergeant vegan, because people still call like anything, everybody who's vegan a hippie. At the same point, the sergeant part of the sergeant vegan, you know, I, it's not fucking around. I was in the military. I'm a combat veteran. So sometimes to those people, I would think they would be like, ah, cute, like Sergeant Vegan. And I'd be like, you better fucking do that, motherfucker. I'm going to choke you the fuck out. And be like, that wouldn't be as cute anymore. And be like,
Not
this,
really.
the sergeant part of Sergeant Vegan is, both, a nice anecdote that really works to tell part of the story, but it's, some no shit stuff as well. How
Hmm.
did I eat then? Sometimes it sucked. It wasn't that much better, except that I did have rank, and we often say RIP, rank, what is it, RHIP, rank has its privileges. I
Mm.
was able to say, like, nah, fuck that. I'm not going to do whatever you're telling me. I'm going to go over and do that. Or I had that kind of leeway because I was in charge of the medic section of a bigger, of a, of a company. And I was able to say, like, I'm going to do this or that. And then when we had a field training exercise that was like 2 weeks long, I was able to say, like, you know what, I've fucked around with your dining facilities enough already. I'm not going to do that. They were
Mm.
like, well, how about we just pay you extra money and give you separate rats? I said, okay, let's just do that.
Well, that's not a horrible option.
No, but while we were in the field, sometimes, yeah, I mean, I had to suck it up, but I had to bring extra food. It wasn't
Hmm.
awful. How it is in the chow hall, I think some chow halls that I've seen have definitely come around that they offer plant-based options. It's the weird thing about the military is it's not as uniform as you would think. So some branches like the Air Force or Chair Force, as we like to joke, might be super cush and easy, whereas some Army kind of installations or the Marines might be super hard. At some places, you're going to be able to get Beyond Meat. Some places, none of those options. You
Hmm.
know, it all really depends, and it shouldn't. One of the eventual things I want to work on is getting a vegan MRE established. I would say reestablished, because they had a bean burrito at one point that was vegan.
Oh, they don't have it anymore? That's odd.
No, they did. They got rid of that. Then they had a non vegan but vegetarian veggie burger that, from all reports, wasn't great. But I think they need to have that. We need to sell it as, instead of calling it vegan necessarily, say kosher, halal,
Mm,
gluten free,
mm-hmm.
fucking plant based option.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's just some gruel, some protein, carbohydrate gruel, and some soylent or whatever, as long as it's calories, whoever's eating it will be happy that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the worse we make it taste, the more likely it is that it's going to be available. Because when you find something that's really, 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 really good and everybody wants it, they're going to take it away from the vegan.
Right. You mentioned Soylent, actually. That is vegan. And I was kind of thinking that in the back of my brain, like, oh man, that could be an option. It's not the greatest, most delicious thing you've ever eaten, but it's available. And
I
in those
mean,
circumstances, why the hell not?
you've been vegetarian and vegan since back in the day. Like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, like I've eaten so many of them, and I'm sure you have too, that at a certain point, you just want the calories. You just want to
Mm-hmm.
not
Yep,
starve.
exactly.
I remember, once at a funeral eating a broccoli sandwich. The ingredients
What?
for broccoli sandwich are two pieces of Wonder Bread, broccoli. That's the end of
Oh my
the ingredients list.
goodness.
Good? No. But it was the only vegan option there. So I was happy for it. I don't think we're asking for too much. Now, to be fair to the animal ag and the world, I'm not asking too much now, and we're not either. We eventually will. I mean, my sights are not set on compromise. My sights are set on the end of animal agriculture. So I get where they're thinking that if they give us an inch, we'll take a yard. Because
Mm,
fuck it, I'm going to take a mile if I can get it. You know,
absolutely.
we're talking about life and death here. If you read the science, animal ag equals the death of this planet. And even if you don't want to think in sciencey terms, they're literally killing fucking billions of animals for nothing, to
Mm-hmm.
get people unhealthy. So fuck yeah, I'll find a way. I'll figure out a way. Together, I'm hoping we can push to the end of animal agriculture, hopefully by 2030. But I mean, I think when you just choose some date, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're on the right track though. I mean, this is the collective vegan mission basically in various ways, in various industries. Like there's a lot of work still to be done, and clearly you're an important part of it, which is a nice segue to your books,
Oh, I
by the
love it.
way.
I love it.
So
So
tell us what the deal is. Our listeners won't be able to see the books,
I'm
but
I'm
if you're
holding it up
watching
anyway.
if you're watching the video version of this interview, then you will be able to see it. So Vegan Strong is one of your books, and then you also have a children's book. So
I
tell us
do.
the deal. What is The Adventures of Sergeant Piggy and Vegan Strong?
So we'll start with Vegan Strong.
Okay.
Basically, been vegan for 28 years at the time I wrote this. It was like I've been vegan for 23 years. I wanted to take all the information that I had learned up until that point, all the trials and the tribulations, the what worked and what didn't work. I wanted to include, stuff about, working out. I had run a couple marathons. I'd done a lot of strength training. I'd done martial arts, and I had gone to vegan culinary school. And I wanted to put all that in a field manual, like receptacle for people to be able to read all that and be able to think, oh, being vegan is easy, non-expensive, and for everybody. Because I think
Mm,
people until recently have been always trying to kind of flavor veganism in a way that I don't think was helpful, like talking about just about how what a martyr they are, or that it's something like unique that only they could do, or that it's difficult or whatever, or that it makes you a hippie. Because,
Mhm.
you know, again, if hippies were in, I would be all for saying like, yeah, it's the fucking hippiest thing you could do. But because that does not speak to the majority of American and probably not Canadian culture, I wanted to rephrase it in a, okay, vegan is a practical thing, in that
Mm.
I like fucking living on this planet. If we destroy the planet, it'll probably kill us too. So how about we not destroy the planet? And if animal ag is what's doing that, maybe we need to rethink that. And that's not a hippie thing. That's a I care about life thing. I care about my own life thing.
Mhm.
And just from anything, from you like working out. Okay, well, eating, they studies have shown that drinking milk leads to inflammation. Studies have shown that the standard American diet leads to diabetes and obesity. So there's so many reasons why people shouldn't eat animals and they should be vegan. However, the whole perception, sometimes unfortunately from vegans, that we're all a bunch of fucking hippies, has only been holding it
Sadly
back.
still out there, yep.
So I thought, kind of make it look like a military field manual,
Mm.
and that's the least hippie thing. A picture of me in Afghanistan on the back, because why the
Yep.
fuck not?
Yep.
And I thought that would kind of help rephrase the conversation, and reset how people were thinking about us. And to some extent, I think I was able to be successful with this. I'm very proud of what I did, and it took me 5 years, and it,
Wow.
it, it fucking
Man, when
rules.
you set your brain on something, you just fucking get it done. So
Well, I mean,
impressive.
I think we're all like that, and it just depends on how long it takes you. I'm sure, someone who's a better writer, who's quicker, it would have taken. I mean, it took me 5 fucking years, but I was working full time in a hospital during it.
Yeah,
But
give yourself a break.
the uh, the other book is The Adventures of Sergeant Piggy,
So
which,
awesome.
thank you very much, a fully illustrated, very super cute book on a pig that goes around the world on adventures and saves animals.
Love
I
it. Love it.
Well, thank you. I wanted to make a book that, especially during the pandemic, would be about adventure, the love of the world and traveling and all that, have all that stuff in there. And for kids too, because now no one's going anywhere or doing anything during the
Mhm.
pandemic other than
Mhm.
trying not to get COVID. But I wanted to have a little bit of seed planting in there too. Talk a little bit about being vegan, about going green, saving the planet. I think that's very important. That's important for us in our generation, but the next generation is going to be super important, because it's their world that they're going to be inheriting. So instead of making it, because I've seen some vegan books that are like kind of weepy and sad and like a Debbie Downer shit. I thought, if I could make it upbeat and fun, so not only people who are raising their kid vegan could read it, but like friends, coworkers, people are like, hey, I want to buy such and such kid a book. Yes, do I mention concepts that we would like Sergeant Picky goes looking for vegan ice cream, but I don't call it
Awesome.
vegan ice cream. I call it dairy-free ice cream. There's like one or two explicit, not explicit, but mentions of not eating animals, but it's more like Sergeant Piggy doesn't eat animals because animals are his
Mm.
friends, and
Mhm.
not like chopped up pictures of cows and shit, like making everyone sad, and honestly are not productive in this conversation. More than anything, we still need to normalize plant-based living. And this is just another thing to help normalize it. Someone reads it, oh, of course you can be happy and healthy and plant-based or vegan, and leave that at that, especially for ages like 4 to 7. I don't think they need any kind of Debbie Downer sad stuff.
100%. That's amazing. It's kind of the same idea as like the militant vegan approach to adults doesn't work. The same deal with like sadness. And I mean, there's a certain level of information that kids, I think, are entitled to about where their food comes from. But
Mm.
there's different ways of approaching it. So I think this in a more positive way, not labeling it as officially vegan, even though technically it is, that's a pretty useful approach.
Well, I would like to think so. And I think the vegan stuff can kind of slip under the radar, which is completely the reason I did it that way.
Hmm.
I mean, originally, just like, Vegan Strong, I was hitting you over the head with it. And then I thought, what is my main goal with this? With Vegan Strong, I approached Vegan Strong originally as I did when I was a sergeant, that I'm going to
Hmm.
choke you the fuck out, motherfucker approach.
Yeah.
Uh, a lot of people will find that language to be a little strong and almost hard to handle. And they would have probably found that Sergeant Vegan a little even stronger. So I started to realize, am I kind of getting in my own way here, like with my
Hmm.
approach? And this is Vegan Strong. I wrote it more as how I am as an RN with, okay, hey, here, sir, I'm here to help you. I'm not here to, kiss your ass. I'm here to tell you what you need to do and what we need to do to get you healthy.
Hmm.
This, that, and the other. Let's get you healthy. The end. And I think that approach is a much more positive. And same goes with the Adventures of Sergeant Piggy. I don't think that weepy, overdoing, overbearing voice would have been productive for kids either. Like, bleh.
Hmm.
But
Kids or the parents who are presumably reading
no.
this to the
So
kids.
I don't think either. Nobody would have enjoyed that. Whereas the super light, happy-go-lucky, friendly, fun. Wow, the world is so exciting because I've been to 47 countries and a bunch of those countries
Wow.
are in there and it's super fun. And then like, oh yeah, go green, like save the environment, vegan stuff, and then back to
Brilliant.
fun.
Brilliant. Hey, one more question before I let you go. In your current work as an RN, does veganism come up? Do you bring it up to patients? Does it come up with colleagues? What's the situation? Because I'm presuming you're working with folks on occasionally long-term chronic issues, not always acute things.
So yes, it comes up occasionally. Uh, Not as much as I would like to. I would like to eventually transition into that was the lion's share of my work and to be able to work.
Mm.
I'm a veteran. I work with other veterans.
Hmm.
So a specific part of the population probably who's least likely to be interested in, anything besides meat and potatoes and the worst fucking food that we have
It's
available.
kind of why I was wondering.
Occasionally when patients will ask, I'll bring it up, or like, we could not be dumping all this insulin in you if you were able to fix your diet and like, you consider plant-based. So a majority of my time is not spent with them during meals. I work
Mm.
nights, so I start working like 4 hours. I'll be
Oh, man.
there overnight. um, so in those cases, the only patients who are awake are like demented or they're not able to sleep because they're like going through withdrawals. That's not a
Right.
really good
Yeah.
time to hit
Good
someone
point.
with the like, I know you want something, some kind of narcotics or something to help you come down, but can I just tell you about plant-based living instead? I don't think that would work. Um,
Nope. Definitely
and
not.
and then lately, because of COVID, I've been in a COVID only ward.
Wow.
And with those patients, whether like I worked, let me see, I worked Saturday night in a that was COVID ICU helping out. None of those patients are awake there, and they're all intubated.
Hmm.
So I'd
Yeah,
be,
also not a good
yeah,
situation
I'd
for
be like,
bringing
hey,
a
sir, I
plant-based
know you're
vegan.
not conscious, and you
But
might
have you
not make it through this,
considered?
but have you considered? I might decrease your propofol so you can come back to consciousness, and I could tell you all about vegan living. Uh, Coworkers sometimes have an interesting take on it. I think they are pretty supportive, um, sometimes receptive to hearing about it. Sometimes they're not and blind to it. Uh, and it's a mixed bag. I mean, some people have bought my book and been very receptive. Have they actually changed their lifestyle? I mean, maybe tiny bit. I at the you know if I mentioned it and I was like nonstop about it, that would probably make me, if you're not into it, a rough person to work with.
Hmm.
And being able to shut up about it, like if someone ever saw my car or just for funsies looked on my social media, it's clear where I stand
Hmm.
on
Right.
all that shit.
Yes.
So I I think when people are interested, they'll ask. If
Hmm.
they're not, we'll just leave it at that. And in that way, we can live and let live. Something. a skill that I got out of the military, which I think for these troubling times is very important, is that live and let live. Like you can, weirdly only in the military, I think in society, you can have people with completely opposite views being able to put all that shit aside to accomplish a mission, to get a job done, and to more or less put up with each other's shit, as opposed to having to bicker and argue about every last thing. And
Right. Yeah.
weirdly, because I work with not very many vets, but a few, like we're able to do the same in that circumstance too, and be friends, even if we have like ridiculously different political views. I work with a couple like Trump people, and we're
Say no
friends.
more.
and and I think that's because of this. One of the many, weird positives about the military, and that like they know where I stand,
Mm,
I know where they stand. We're good with each other, and yeah, I mean, we can have these very spirited political debates and just be able to like be like, okay, I know you stand here, I stand here, and like nothing but love for you, but for reals, like,
hmm.
yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, let's leave it there for today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I feel like we could do a whole series of further podcast interviews. But Bill, yeah, it was great speaking with you. We're going to link to your website, your books. We're going to have all that in our show notes for our listeners to
Sweet.
check out. So, yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was great speaking with you.
Thank you very much for having me. Stay vegan strong, everyone.